Hi there! My name is Ishel, and in this video presentation, I will be discussing about dialect variation and its nature. But before we properly discuss the topic, let us first take a look at the key terms of this lesson. In this video, we will focus on the variation within languages, and we will explore the different types of dialect variation. These are regional, social class, ethnic, gender, and stylistic. We will look at the patterns of variations on the different levels of languages, including words and their meanings, pronunciations, sentence structures, and even conventions for language use. We will also take a look at the intricate bond between dialect variation at any given moment in time and language variation over time or language change. Before we begin, allow me to present to you the goals of this video presentation. What is really the nature of dialect variation? Social linguistics, the study of language in its social context, states that all varieties of language are equally complex, regularly patterned, and capable of acting as the means by which any message their speakers might wish to communicate. The term dialect is simply a label to any variety of language, including the standard variety. It is also used to refer an entire language variety with features on all levels of language patterning, including phonology, grammar, and lexicon. Dialect is not the same thing as accent, since accent refers only to the phonological level of language, and dialects are characterized by features on all linguistic levels. Linguistic classifications and relations between language varieties can change, so that varieties once considered to be part of a single, larger language may come to be thought of as separate languages, and may even become more linguistically different from one another. The important thing for linguists and linguistic studies is that all language varieties, regardless of label or political or social standing, are equally well developed linguistically and follow clear patterns or norms. When we say regular patterning of dialects, it means that the standard dialect has patterns. Grammar rules, such as adverbs derived from adjectives, usually take ly endings, are essentially explicit statements of patterns, just like what is shown here. However, not all rules for how we form words, put words into sentences, or pronounce things are written down. Rather, they are part of our unconscious knowledge of the regular patterning of our language. For example, all native English speakers know that adjectives usually come before nouns in phrases like the red house or the blue book. Yet, this rule for adjective placement does not appear in any pedagogical grammar books for native speakers, and no native speaker ever had to consciously learn it, and that is why in every language there are patterns. Having a deep awareness of one's language pattern helps improve communication as the language is more precise and also helps seek clarifications from the person he or she is communicating with. Without linguistic patterns, languages would not exist and people would not be able to understand each other. If non-standard dialects are just as regularly patterned as those that are considered standard, then why are some varieties more highly socially valued than others? It's mostly a matter of fashion. As an example, let's consider the case of R-lessness. This feature is one of the most noticeable characteristics of standard British English and often considered to be one of the most prestigious varieties of English in the world.
The shifting fate of R in different varieties of English over time, as well as the fact that R-lessness is valued in Standard British English but devalued in Standard American, tells us that there is nothing inherently better or worse about pronouncing your R's or not. Unfortunately, the seemingly whimsical turns of linguistic fashion often have grave consequences, and people who speak non-standard varieties are often subject to discrimination on the basis of dialect, in the classroom, workplace, courtroom, and elsewhere. Why do we continue to hear so much speech that differs from what we would consider to be standard? We have already seen that speaking any dialect requires following its often subtle rules, so laziness or lack of intelligence really cannot be the answer. Furthermore, many people with plenty of education speak non-standard dialects at least sometimes, and we can even hear political leaders speak with regional accents in their public speeches. In truth, people use non-standard dialects for important social reasons. Many people use relatively standard varieties in certain settings, but switch into more vernacular dialects in other situations, or switch within a single setting to achieve a certain effect. Again, we might think of a politician who uses a regional accent to give a down home feel to their words to convey the message, I'm one of you. All languages and language varieties, no matter how seemingly uniform, are inherently variable. For example, speakers of R-less dialects do not drop their R's categorically. This would be tantamount to saying that R-less dialects don't have R in their phonology, but they clearly do. This variability is not random or haphazard. It patterns in regular ways according to linguistic and social factors. The regular patterns that characterize languages and language varieties are very often variable rather than categorical. As with categorical rules, variable rules also display regular patterns based on linguistic factors. Linguistic variability also patterns regularly according to social factors such as social class and gender. In many communities, speakers in lower social class groups, as measured by income, occupation, and education, use non-standard features more frequently than people in higher class groups. Though there are a number of exceptions, women often use standard speech features more frequently than men. The graph shown here indicates that in general, speakers in lower socioeconomic classes or SEC use prestigious features less frequently, while those in progressively higher classes show progressively higher usage levels. At the same time, all class groups use the prestigious features more frequently as speakers move from the less self-conscious speech styles on the left-hand side of the graph to the more self-conscious styles on the right. This graph, on the other hand, indicates that speakers in lower socioeconomic classes use stigmatized features more frequently than those in higher classes, and that speakers in all class groups use stigmatized features less and less as they move from casual and self conscious speech to situations in which they are more conscious of whether or not they are speaking correctly. The inherent variability of dialects extends to the individual level. Everyone's use of dialect features fluctuates based on situational factors, such as the formality of the situation or who they're talking to, as well as social psychological factors, such as whether they want to accommodate to or disassociate from the people they're with, or what type of image they want to project. In order to identify how patterns of language variation correlate with linguistic and social factors, social linguists often conduct social linguistic surveys of communities of interest. They conduct social linguistic interviews with individuals from different social and age groups and then identify linguistic features with variable patterning. These features, called variables, must have at least two different ways in which they can be produced with no change in the meaning of the word or phrase in which they occur. So, to summarize all that has been said, understanding variation within a language is very important for every member of our community. That is why social linguistics investigates all these language variations. Different factors affect how a language is spoken within a country. They are reflected in every language varieties, pronunciation, vocabulary, grammatical constructions, and syntax. The English language varies not only on individual and national levels, but also even more on the global level. The study of social linguistics can build people's awareness of different varieties of English and help us become more respectful to all other languages and their dialects.